If I could have everybody's attention, I'd like to call the August 13th work session of the Board of Education to order. Welcome everyone that's here, and if we could all rise, we'll have the invocation pledge.
Good afternoon, everybody. If you could just join me in a moment of silent reflection, please. Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have before us an agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
A motion by Tom, and who is the second? Ann. All in favor? Unanimous. Okay, first we have the presentation and discussion items, and first up is the construction update with Mr. Tom Winning. How are you this afternoon?
Great. Good afternoon.
So as an overview, during this past summer, 10 of our existing schools underwent additions, renovations, and the real scope of that was primarily infrastructure, site utilities, some demolition, the architectural tie-ins for the future additional expansions, and obviously it was critical on each of those 10 schools to finish that work prior to school opening last week. And fortunately, the team came through on each of the 10 school projects, and each were opened with really no impact to existing operations other than some minor inconveniences. So we're really grateful and fortunate to several entities, really starting with the public and private utilities that we work with, Sony, Georgia Power, AT&T, Atlanta Gas Light, Comcast, Forsyth Water and Sewer. Each of those utilities really played a critical role during a really short 8-week window that we had. Simultaneously, our internal support from custodial to information technology, a lot of the data connections as we get more sophisticated with our schools. That phase just becomes a lot more sophisticated, a lot more complicated, and information technology did a great job. Our own maintenance, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, carpentry leads and divisions that tied into each of the renovations came through for us, as well as the general contractors, third-party construction managers, subs. Also, the individual school administrators. Each really worked collaboratively. Certainly issues arose during the summer, but in each case, comprehensively throughout the system. We're just very appreciative of the administration working through us through those challenges. And lastly, the inspection authorities from life safety as we reopen each of these schools. Forsyth County Fire Department, the Forsyth Engineering and Forsyth Planning goes under the Building Inspection Division. Everybody was just very collaborative, and the team ended up with a great result.
And the weather.
It was dry. That certainly
but it did stay dry.
We'll take that. So that helped. And then lastly, during the past week, there have been some minor inconveniences. Students are parking probably further than they did last year. Their pedestrian route to their classes is not direct and diagonal through the construction site. It's a right angle and about and around, so there's a further distance, and in some cases in the 95-degree heat. So we're sensitive to that, but in each of the cases, we're really trying to mitigate where we are with the construction so as we don't impact operations. So to specifically talk about the progress of the schools, you see North beginning to really be transformed. In the lower left-hand corner is the new bus parking lot. You see cars parked there. This was taken a day before school opening. In the upper right-hand corner, you see the new administrative parking lot. Both of those were requirements. As you see now, the existing core is well underway. Site utilities have been relocated, and you see the job well underway with foundations. In the upper left-hand corner, you see the gym, and that's a more active shot of the gym. We've got some deep excavation. Shoring will occur next week, and site utilities are currently being installed. Moving to Central, and as Mitch likes to refer to this as the rebranding of Central, you really even see the different orientation now with the main entry coming off Elm Street when we're complete. So you do see the 5 different programmatic elements of administration, counseling, the kitchen, cafeteria, media center. Foundations are occurring in those areas. To the left of the kitchen, you do see the red roof of what used to be the field house. The photo was taken a couple days ago. Today that field house is no longer there. That's been demolished. You do see the new field house location, which just makes a lot more sense from the efficiency being next to the existing gym and football field. So we're progressing well on the new additions, and then you'll see the STEM lab, computer lab, those type renovations again get done the following year after the new is complete. So Central is well on its way.
Tom, somebody asked me if I thought Elm Street would be widened in front with the school moving.
For the deceleration lane for the parking and entrance of it, but the road itself is
not going to change.
Moving over to South,
Is all of this is this online? If can they go to their school websites and access these plans or no?
I think the majority, if not all of the principals have done so and put it on their websites
I just had
individually.
somebody ask me what they were going to do at Central, and I thought, I can't explain that to you, I need to be able to see a picture.
We've encouraged all the principals to put these aerial shots on their website, once Tom released this earlier this week. It's such a great visual, because if you're standing,
it is. This is great, because I can see this. Yeah.
Right. You can see how it's going to all come together.
Exactly. So that's good. Yeah, if they can get those on there, that would be great. And then we can just refer people to the school's website.
Yes,
so.
and I'm giving you the executive summary given the scope of what we've got, but literally each of the projects has 10 detailed photos behind the photos, and but yes, we're in progress doing that. Okay. And it'll really begin to show, and you'll really see it with the last jobs that are under construction.
And that keeps everybody excited, I think, when they can see the progress and how it's changing, and so that's good. Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
So on South, you see foundations well underway in the different areas. So what does get exciting, the dirt and the site utilities can kind of be blah to a lot of people, but what gets everybody excited and saying this really is a transformation, they can see the progress, is when steel becomes erected. And at South, we'll have the steel really in all the sections arriving the end of this month.
Great.
So you'll start to see a lot of progress on South. On a smaller note, in the upper left-hand corner, you do see the new parking lot. That was an extension. So that team was really even able to beat their contractual obligations, and knowing both functional and the sensitive issue of parking at each of our high schools, we were able to deliver an additional 80 spaces early. So that helps alleviate some of the consternation associated with these. So moving on to Lambert High School. In the core area, you saw the counseling. We were able to complete that renovation prior to school opening. We then have the 3 different adds of the 21 classroom addition, and miscellaneous additions and foundations are well underway there. Up on the top, the before and after shots are always interesting to see. To point out the intergovernmental agreement artificial turf field, you really see how that's worn. And, while not part of the program, just pleased to report, and again, a great win-win initiative with Forsyth Parks and Recreation, that the community really enjoys that 18 hours a day. When it's done, we've mobilized, erosion control is installed, we've got the light tower bases installed, and you'll see the artificial turf material itself after site work takes about a month. So in late September, mid-September, you'll begin seeing the artificial turf installed at Lambert. Moving then to the 2 jobs we have under design for the high schools. Denmark is proceeding, design development, moving beyond the schematic stage, and again, I was trying to improve on the prototypes, getting all the stakeholders' inputs. West Forsyth, you'll be receiving the contract recommendation award to BRPH next week, so we're anxious to get West in the cycle moving with the other high schools as well. Moving on to the middle schools, we did have HVAC upgrades, which are now complete at North and Vickery Creek and Settles Bridge, and then substantially complete at Daves Creek Elementary. The primary middle schools that we've got under renovation are Riverwatch. So the prerequisite, as you see the windows boarded up and a lot of the MEP considerations that had to be done this summer to allow construction to take place without impacting existing operations at both Riverwatch and South, it's similar in nature, have occurred. You see the cut above the first wing, so foundations are proceeding. You see the concrete truck. And notably, because of the extension of the new building phase, we had to reorient the practice field, the football field. So fortunately, that sod was installed last week, and that was critical to get that done. It still takes about a month to really play itself and get the sod rooted, but that activity is now complete as well. Similarly, South has the similar function, the differentiator being the loop road, and now you do see the loop road beginning to take shape, which will not only eliminate the traffic concern, the pedestrian flow, in addition to the functional classrooms themselves is taking place out at South. Again, footings, foundations are underway. The real progress is out at DeSana Middle School. Today there were 175 people out there. So it's kind of fun and exciting to see the culmination, and at this stage that it's at, you've really got a lot of the trades all coming together, from site work still occurring, concrete occurring, steel occurring, but then you've also started to get some finishes of the roof, MEP under rough-ins are occurring. So you've got a lot of trades on board, and we'll probably peak out there about 225 people. And also the curb and gutter for the site, because it's such a massive site. Not only are we focusing on the building, but before we know it, we'll have the October rains and the winter weather come in. So you always got to be mindful to get the site done. So that team's making great progress. And when we first started this program, a year and a half ago, that probably more than any other project was on the critical tight schedule path. So we're thrilled to see that project coming through.
I love the natural barriers.
I do too. I love the way the trees.
It
Yeah,
is,
in
that's
the middle
really
like that.
nice.
Really do.
Beautiful piece of property
It
to work
is.
with.
Mhm.
Had some site challenges to work through, but
I'm sure.
but yeah, when it's done, that'll
So
be a
nice.
beautiful property. Then moving on to Brandywine Elementary School, similar to DeSana. And again, the new is easier than the renovations, but the progress is just much greater. So similarly, the roofing trades are now on board, the MEP, meaning mechanical, electrical, plumbing, rough-ins are occurring. Similarly, as we stress to the contractors, let's not forget about the site, because we'll be back into rain over the winter weather. But you do see they have at least their public entry road in and their bus entry. Already the base coat is paved. We don't pave permanent. We wait a coat so construction traffic occurs. But significant progress on Brandywine, on our new schools as well. So that's an overview of where the program is at. Does anyone have any questions?
No, good stuff, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom.
Okay, and next, one of our favorite things, by one of our favorite people, Mr. Perkle with the redistricting timeline.
Is it your favorite topic or just your favorite?
Are you going to take the rest of
Favorite
the year off?
person. Favorite person.
No, he's not.
I guess,
No, he's not.
Not taking the fall off?
I guess if Tom's going to keep building schools, we're going to have to send students there, right? So,
Blame it on Tom.
I'll present to you the proposal for the redistricting timeline and communication plan to open DeSana Middle School and Brandywine Elementary School. The elementary schools at this point that we believe will be affected with redistricting to open these two new schools will be Big Creek, Daves Creek, Haw Creek, Matchwood, Midway, Shallow Point, and Vickery Creek Elementary School. The middle schools that at this point will be affected are Piney Grove Middle, South Forsyth Middle, and Vickery Creek Middle School. As you know, our standard practice for grandfathering is that in the years past, we have allowed rising fifth graders and rising eighth graders to remain at that school for that one final year, as they've gone through that school and they want to complete their last year there. We also have extended that to siblings for any of these students if they so choose to stay there, but it is for that 1 year only. And we've let those parents know up front that if they choose that option for a rising fifth grader or a rising eighth grader and have another child in a lower grade level, that it will be for that 1 year only.
So their second grader could stay for the second grade while their older one was in the fifth grade, but then in the third grade, they will go to where they're districted. Okay.
And some parents choose to do that. Some parents choose to, even though they've been at a school, an elementary school for, it's typically not the case in middle school, but it is sometimes for elementary school, they may choose to just go ahead and move both children to the new school. Just depends. We have some who do that.
Transportation is a big issue.
Right, because we do not provide transportation for that. And again, there's no intent to adjust 16, 17 high school lines at this time. However, we certainly review all of that, and that's considered based on the elementary and middle school changes. So high school redistricting will occur in the fall of 2017 for the opening of Denmark High School, which will be in the fall of August 2018. And our timeline is of course, presenting this afternoon, the proposal for the timeline and communication plan. At your regular meeting, we'll ask you to approve this plan, your 6 o'clock meeting next week. And then on the 21st, we will meet with the affected school principals to review with them the timeline and the communication plan and kind of where we are at this point and some things that we need them to do and be aware of. On September the 10th, we will present the first draft of the lines to you all at your board meeting, and we will publish those on September the 11th. We'll post the first draft online for feedback, and that will be through September the 21st. Community feedback for round 2 on October the 8th. We will present draft 2 of the lines to you all. And on October the 15th, at your regular board meeting, ask you to approve draft 2. And the 16th through the 26th will be another time period that the draft will be posted and in the schools and ask for feedback, for community and online feedback. We have 2 public forums scheduled, October the 20th for primarily the elementary school folks. That will be at West Forsyth High School at 6 p.m. And on October the 22nd, will be the secondary, for the secondary folks, the middle school folks will be same time and same place, 6 p.m. at West Forsyth High School. And on November the 12th, we present the final draft to the board at your work session at 4 p.m. And then at your regular board meeting on the 19th, we'll ask you to approve the lines for opening of the 2 new schools. We have this time, it's critical that you approve it at your regular board meeting in November, and we've talked about this before, because we have to have time to get the letters out to all the folks. We have to allow time for the facilities department to get all of those things, those numbers together, and have all of the numbers rolled up for Dr. Salom and HR to start working on staffing allotments, which typically is done in mid or early February. So there's a lot of work to happen after the lines are approved, so we need a lot of time to do that. So that's the proposed redistricting timeline.
We had talked with Mr. Perkle and Nancy and I, looking over the schedule and thinking about how this had worked pretty well in the past. And the one suggestion that we all came up with is after we have the public meetings, there's about 3 weeks before the next draft comes out. And last time we did redistricting, there was a couple of good suggestions that came out at those public meetings. But as a board, we really didn't feel comfortable making changes at that point because it could affect people who had not yet seen a change to their subdivision, say. So we were talking about adding another called board meeting on the 29th at Mr. Perkle's recommendation for that date, so that after the public forums, we could all get back together and say, okay, we heard people say this, staff could look at it and say, we heard this, and then perhaps give any direction on some potential changes. And then if there was any more changes, that would give the public a chance, particularly those who may not have seen a change yet, to give some more input, versus when we get to the final vote, they really might be not aware there'd been another change.
And that will give us as a committee enough time before the November 12th meeting to put together.
Because really, it'll be the
so
first
that
time we
when-
as a board were really
Right.
discussing all the input that we were gathering from these forums.
That's right.
So we felt as a board, we really needed to say, we think this is a good idea or not a good idea. And then they'll be there to answer our questions, saying, oh, we've already looked at all that, and these are the reasons. Because we don't see the reasoning that the committee comes up with everything. So we feel this will be the first time we really get the reasoning behind why they went one direction or the other direction. That'll help us too in answering questions when we get the emails saying, no, the reason we've decided that is because of this. We really feel like we needed that extra,
So that was
really work session just for the board.
So it's October 29th at 4 PM we were suggesting.
Okay. And I will add that to this timeline, and that will be added when it comes back to you next week for your final approval.
Thank you.
Okay.
Joey, I know that we are not doing the high school redistricting at this time, but are we going to be able to see, I hesitate to say this because if we get it out there, then people are going to say, well, these are the lines. But I know that there's going to be some thinking when you draw up these lines, how the high school, they're going to feed into the high school. And I was just thinking if we could have some of that information. I hesitate to have you have any maps out because it won't be anything final for the next year, but just what the thinking was, maybe.
Well, and we can talk about the thinking. I totally agree with you. We as a committee really do strongly feel that we would not put maps out this early because numbers are going to change, enrollments are going to change, and people are going to spend 2 years probably getting, really antsy about something that may not even be the way that it's going to be. So I agree, we totally agree with that. But certainly we can talk about, and we have been talking about when we've met to this point as a committee, certainly talking about and looking at and thinking about opening that school, especially when we're thinking about feeder patterns.
Right.
So we're thinking, okay, if we move this and we do this here and we move this to populate DeSanta Middle School or Brandywine Elementary School, what will that do if we have to do this when we are redistricting for Denmark? But we do that, and we've always done that, really, even when we have thought in the back of our mind and that in past when redistricting that, okay, there's going to be, and I'm just using this I'm kind of making this up, but if we said we know there's going to be an elementary school number 15 in probably this year, so we think about that and talk about that because we're going to say, well, so it's okay if these schools are a little over because in elementary 15 in 2000, right, 3 years from now, that's going to take care of that. So we talk about all that. We actually have talked about that this morning in our committee meeting regarding Denmark High School.
Okay. I don't want anything in writing. I just want the conversation to take place so that we know what you were thinking.
Right.
Okay.
I think the fact that they're so close, if you really look at more than one elementary feed a middle, that elementary is logically going to feed that new middle. And if you look at more than one middle are feeding a high school, to me, logically, that middle school will feed that high school. I don't think there'll be an issue there. I really don't. I think it's the other changes that we're going to make, which will be in 2 years, that we're going to be, that we won't have to get into this time. But them being so close, it's kind of like down at Lambert where you have
Sharon.
all of
That's how
one
things have
school
changed
going to
from
River.
when,
Right.
even when we first started doing it now, everything's so populated
Right.
that it just makes sense.
Because I mean, if you look
So
at Coal
close.
Mountain and North Middle and North High, I would think everybody going to Coal Mountain probably ends up in North High. If you've got schools real close together, it's usually a straight feeder pattern.
Yeah,
It's
you're right.
splits. That's
Right.
one that was
Right,
split.
it's
But
the
I'm
splits,
Right.
but since they're so close together, I don't see those splitting
Those won't,
into
but the others would.
The others will, right.
Right.
But I think the others, that's where we'd have more issues
Right. No.
Mhm.
Right.
that we have to be careful with.
Okay, so we're all good with that if we add a meeting for October 29th, 6 o'clock, I guess, where people would have time to get here. Oh, you want to do 4?
4. It's a work session 4.
Okay, let me change on my calendar.
Work sessions, yes. They'll have had their forums the week before to
You
come
know,
and talk to us.
4 would
This
be
won't
better.
So this
This
will
will be a
be-
work session, they won't be talking to us.
So we can take the input from the public forums.
Okay, so we won't have public participation or anything?
No, this will be a work session.
Okay, gotcha.
All righty. Anything else? Are we good with that? So we will move on to the student calendar timeline with Mr. Purple.
Okay, the timeline communication plan for developing the 2016-17 student calendar is really the same as timeline we've used for the past several years, actually. We send a draft to local school councils for them to say, because we have to send them something to start with. Okay, give us your feedback as a local school council. What is your feedback? We compile feedback from them. We'll send that to them on September the 11th. Give them from the 11th to the 25th. They send that back to me, and then we develop a draft that we call our first draft, really, that we present to the cabinet and principals on October the 2nd. I'll present that draft to you on October the 8th. And then we post that online on October the 9th after it's presented to you for community and internal feedback. So we get feedback from community, staff, teachers, students. That will be from October the 9th through November the 2nd. And then I'll take that feedback, make any changes based on the feedback. I compile a summary, just like in the past. I always compile a summary of the feedback so you can see. And plus, I send you the feedback so you can read through it all yourselves too. I usually send that to you all as well. And then I'll present the calendar to the board to you on November the 12th, and then ask you to approve it at your regular board meeting on November the 19th. So that's the timeline and communication plan for the school calendar.
The nice thing is that'll put it, when we go to do the final, it's after this first year that we have that fall break. So at
Right,
least
we'll get that input.
it'd be interesting to see how
Yep.
people, once we've gone through it, what their reaction is.
Yeah, that will be interesting.
Because this will be right after.
It'll be right after that,
Feedback,
so.
right. Be good timing.
Okay. Is that good?
Okay.
Thanks, Joey.
Hello, everyone.
Hello?
The numbers man.
The numbers man. And just to let you know, we are still growing. I think the only way we're not
Wow,
grow
that's a surprise.
is if we shut our doors, which that's not going to happen. So these numbers are based on numbers that I pulled from when I was putting together the presentation from yesterday and today. But current enrollment is just over 44,000. That is an increase from last year, just over 1,400, and that's similar to where we were last year. So over the last several years, our actual growth, when you look at end of year to the beginning of the year, has roughly been about 1,400 students. So we're on the same track as before, though we did add 5,500 new folks K through 12. That doesn't signify the significant growth. That's you have to take out the graduates that we had and the folks that had moved away also. But that new growth that we had is that 1,416 number. We still have about 54 students that have appointments to register over this week and the next coming up weeks. So they're still coming in. And then we also have 24 incomplete registrations, folks that have come through that may be missing one document or another. So we expect those to show up back in the classrooms within the next couple of days too. Similar trend line, this is just that growth that we're seeing. We've added 5,500 new folks that have come in, so we are still seeing more folks that are coming into the district. Nothing has changed with that one. And of those numbers, this is just a breakdown I'll let you glance over to see where the folks are coming from. A lot of those that are coming from private school and homeschool, one of the things that I observed was that they're also coming in at the middle school and the high school level. So those folks that, and we get calls from the parents all the time, they want to make sure when they start those significant years that that's when they're leaving the private of the homeschool and they're actually coming into the district too.
Are those all from Forsyth County, the private and the homeschooling?
No, those are
That's
not.
from
Those are
anywhere.
from outside also.
Okay.
Could be anywhere. Again, a breakdown, and this is more for your reference for later on. We won't go through each one of these. But of that 5,500, these are the breakdown of where they went to. And this year I added the percent of overall, so it'll give you a visual about across the district. Again, you'll see the higher ones typically in the south end of the county, which is what we've been seeing for the last several years too. Move on to the middle schools next.
4.4.
Yeah, they're just below capacity right now.
Middle school, and again, elementary, most significant is from the kindergarten students moving in, so that's why those numbers are much higher.
Mhm.
And then our high school breakdown. Enrollment at the academies. Current, and with Forsyth Academy and IHE, that also is a combination of students that are full-time at one of the academies, and also a mixture of those that may be attending part-time while still at the base school, taking 1 or 2 classes at IHE. So there's a little combination there.
Mike, do you remember how many students we started at Forsyth Academy last year? I know it was like 45, 50. Cindy, what's that?
To start the year?
Yes. Right.
About 78 or 80.
Okay.
Right.
So we more than doubled that this year. Of
Right.
course, we made a significant investment in staffing over there to try to increase the numbers, and we can see that that's paying off,
Right.
which obviously has an impact on our traditional high schools as well. So it's great to see those numbers as high as they are.
Right, that's the most that I've seen. I'm used to those numbers around the 70 mark from what I've seen in the past too. So it's great. It provides a lot of opportunities for the students, which is fantastic.
Well, not only that, it's also validation about the new career academy that we're doing, that students are interested in just the education
Yes.
part.
That's right.
So validates that.
Could we maybe mid-year or some point get an update on the academy over there? We used to, with the graduations and things, we used to get a lot of the nice success stories, and it would be nice to kind of get an update on how things are going over there from somebody, whoever would be appropriate, after a few months.
We can make a note for folks that oversee that one.
Mhm.
Beginning of the year, end of the year numbers. So this is the 14-15 year. Just shows that we do typically see 200 to 400, usually on the average about 300 student growth from where we are right now to where we are, where we will be at the end of the school year. And I introduced this last year.
That's amazing.
And this is the trend. And actually, when I plugged in the numbers for this year, I plugged in the number for the October of this year. Now, obviously, we're not there yet. So I based it on 44,300, which is, I think that's a realistic number for where we'll be based on the registration of what we'll be seeing. But it's still, that timeline is still projected at that 50,000 for that 2018 school year. I do want to show you one other graph here. I do not see the spreadsheet in here. Was there a spreadsheet? I've got it here on my file, though.
It's just the 3.
He just happens to have it in his
Have it in my pocket.
He was a Boy Scout.
I was about to say the same.
Never.
Mike is ready, always ready.
Okay.
Yeah, that one.
Now this will be, let me pop that back up here. This is just to show you, this is the where we stood last year with regard to the March FTE numbers. So these are the official numbers of the state that we report. So last year, in March, we were at 42,701. And so I sorted this basically by every district in the state. We were, what's that one? 6th when you look at overall growth. So we had a 4.5% growth from March of 2014 to March of 2015. But when you actually look at the size of the districts, obviously we are the highest growing one out of the larger districts. Okay.
Just checking that Rome
What is
City
it?
certainly
Where's
has some
Montgomery
growth.
County?
Yeah, what happened in Montgomery County?
Rome City must have
Where
a
is that?
superintendent or something.
Yeah. That's a great question.
Look at that.
I'm not sure, but they're seeing some significant growth,
I mean,
obviously.
is
at
that much,
Montgomery
63%? I mean,
Right. This,
Are we
but this
sure
last
that's right?
one, really, I'm going to zoom way out for you on this one, because I went back 20 years. Well, maybe too far on that one. But just to show you, we're the yellow highlighted. Well, 20 years ago, we were the 30th largest district.
Wow.
And it's just moving us all the way up along the way. So let me go ahead and zoom in so that you have a little bit more perspective.
20 years ago.
Okay. So 20 years ago, we were 30th at 9,000 students. And then from there, I started looking at the percentage of how we actually grew each year. So we were actually looking at 11 to 12% growth for all of these years. I mean, we think we're growing now. Look what we were doing way back then. So if we were 15 years ago, we were 20th. And we have moved, just consistently moved up. All of these other districts have stayed the same. The only switch within the top 12, I believe Muskogee County passed Richmond at this point. But everything else has stayed the same. We've been the only district that has continuously been bumping up in the charts and the numbers.
And we're going to
so in order for us to bypass APS, then we're going to be looking at 50,000. So I think we've got a couple years basically in the 7th spot. But then I think around the 2018, 2019 mark we'll be there. But it's just interesting to see the fact that we're still at 4.5%, 4.7% growth, and everyone else is still around that 1 to 2% at the high end too. So just interesting
Looking at
perspective.
all those counties that are ahead of us, and they don't have the land mass, we don't have the land mass they do to handle the students they have.
Right.
That's scary.
So, all right, any questions for me on those?
That's very interesting.
Montgomery County is Vidalia, Georgia.
I just don't know
Sandy looked
how
at
they
that.
could even handle that. Hopefully they knew they were coming. Goodness.
True, right. Okay.
This doesn't sound right.
All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Sure.
Very much.
Before Mike leaves, I would be remiss if we didn't recognize Mike and his team for all the work they've done the last few weeks. It's been unbelievable over there, incredibly busy. They've been working very late every single evening and providing tremendous customer service all along the way. So thank you for your leadership, and thank you to your team for everything they did for helping our new students get registered.
I'll pass it
Really
on. Thank you
appreciate
very
it.
much.
Yes.
I thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Don't you think you could say the same with facilities? I mean, it's not only
I
that they, but more, you've done all the construction.
Absolutely.
But isn't it true in the summertime, you're usually trying to do all the normal, rehab and stuff that goes along with having 35 schools? So that's in addition to the construction.
It is amazing facilities, all the people involved, custodians, maintenance, to pull it all together, as Tom pointed out in his presentation in 8 weeks, is absolutely remarkable. And we were ready. We were nervous.
I rode through a couple of schools a couple
Yeah.
weeks before, and I thought there is no way
Right.
that they can have
Right.
2,000 students
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
So
remarkable.
it was impressive.
Hi, Debbie.
Okay, next,
All
we
right, good
have
evening, everybody.
policy changes.
Just a couple of policy changes. The first one is the child abuse and neglect policy, which is JGI. Just to give you a little background information, we have a new director of DFACS. Her name is Margaret Dahl, and our social worker team is working very closely with them to improve communication, to make sure we've got a seamless policy of making our reports and making sure that our reports are received and that we're notified of that. So we redid some of the wording in this policy to kind of follow along with the procedures that we're doing now. Actually, we have meetings scheduled with DFACS throughout the year, and on September 11th we have one with all of the centralized managers in this district and Margaret to just kind of review our policy. So for example, in this policy, we changed in that first paragraph agency to agencies, because there are times when we make a DFACS report and we might need to include not only DFACS but the Center for Healing or the SRO officer or something like that. So, and another example, down at the third paragraph, school employees and volunteers are not responsible for contacting rather than shall not contact, because in rare instances, there are times when we do have to contact the family if the perpetrator is a sibling of the student or something like that. So it's just in line with what our procedures are. The second policy update is on JGCD, and that is due to Senate Bill 126. And basically and very simply, this expands the EpiPen responsibility to labuterol sulfate. I had to learn how to pronounce that one. And that is basically an orally inhaled medication that is given through a nebulizer for kids that are in respiratory distress, just like we would give an EpiPen if somebody was having an allergic reaction. And so it protects any school employee who in good faith administers or chooses not to administer the medication from civil liability. So that's it. Any questions about those?
No. So we leave these and then we vote on them next week, right?
Okay, and there will be more updates in the spring on the child abuse and neglect. That's a work in progress as we move forward. Okay, thank you.
Alrighty,
Thanks,
thank
Debbie.
you very much. Okay, and now we have Valerie with big news. It has been.
All right, we wanted to provide you all an update of the progress that we've been making. As you all know, in January, when you met at your board retreat, we had some specific intent to explore the possibility of us establishing some type of standalone facility here for workforce development and our career and technical education programs. So this is our kind of our overview tonight of where we're at that process, and certainly to inform you of our intent to apply for the College and Career Academy grant through the Lieutenant Governor's Office. So that's kind of been our focus for the past month or two or three. Basically, this came out of legislation several years ago that said that Georgia wanted to establish specialized charter schools that gave that business and industry partnership collaborative with the local school system. The award amount can be up to $3 million, could be more, could be less. That money can be used for construction, land, renovation, some for equipment and startup costs such as, any kind of architectural design fees, that kind of thing. So the basic eligibility to this grant, it's administered through the Technical College System of Georgia, so you have to partner with your post-secondary partners through either the Technical College System or the University System of Georgia. This just gives you a little bit more information about what we're working on now in terms of the criteria for the grant. There's 17 main areas, all of which we've kind of gathered and collected data really over the past several years, and I'll kind of go over the historical timeline of how we got to where we are, but a lot of this stuff is a work in progress right now in terms of, what's the mission vision of this facility, why is it going to be different, how is it going to address our local workforce needs, down to specifics on the partnerships with dual enrollment and things like that. Certainly a big piece of this is the charter school piece. And Carl Mercer is going to be instrumental in that process. He's been working, we've been working up until we just came in here a minute ago on the charter process, but basically all we have to include for the purposes of the grant are a draft version of a charter. We're not actually applying for the charter right now, but we do have to go ahead and, as if we were applying, work on the draft. So Carl and I, along with Keith Porter and some others, are helping that process now, so we're working on that. So we've got a lot of work to do over the next 2 or 3 weeks trying to get all of this in, but that just kind of gives you the overview of the grant criteria. The map on the right tells you where other communities have been awarded these grants in the past, and while our school is going to look a little bit differently than a lot of these, just wanted to kind of see around Georgia where they were located currently. One thing that the grant is tied to, and it really fits in well with what we're doing with our traditional career and technical education programs, but our career tech teachers are aware of that Georgia has a high demand career initiative report that came out last December. And a lot of our work in terms of our programming and working with students to show them where growth areas are, earning potentials, those kinds of things come from a lot of this data in Georgia, whether it be from the Department of Labor or a report like this. So I included a link to that. Part of the grant award is weighted if you're working in areas that obviously are on this list in Georgia, which makes sense. We're trying to meet a need and fill a skills gap. These are areas that we see that we're going to focus. And when we looked at our areas that we have identified, and then after this list came out, there's a lot of alignment. So we were positive that we were headed in the right direction. Just for a quick historical timeline, and you guys have all been here and known where we've been and where we're headed. But 2030 Chamber report, that vision report that started in the late 90s, early 2000s, I know a lot of you are part of that process, but basically we said in that report, and I included a link to it if you want to go back and look at the document, but basically we said by 2030 in Forsyth County that we would have a learning continuum, a pipeline, a well-established, well-oiled machine of how we do business and how we support our local business in terms of K-12 education, post-secondary, back into the workforce. So that was a big piece, and Randall and I started looking at that probably 2 or 3 years ago and thought, this may help us get to where we want to be in terms of our community and our school system. Certainly the Propel, and I'll talk about that in just a minute, but when we did the Propel graduate Graduation Rate Initiative. That was a big part of Careers and Relevance, the outcomes of that, as well as, you all know the last time we had district accreditation, they encouraged us to look outside the nation for exemplars, and so we feel like that this allows us to do that. We've certainly established a lot in terms of workforce development, in terms of advisory councils and how we're structuring our teachers and what they do. Project Life is involved in this in terms of workforce development for our special needs population, our strategic plan, the pilot that we've done at Siemens with manufacturing. We've learned a lot of valuable lessons through that process over the past 3 or 4 years. On and on and on, down to when we launched Workforce Forsyth in partnership with UNG, Lanier Tech, and the Chamber. You all were at that event that we launched in 2014 with our career tech teachers. I put this slide in here just so you could remember where we were in 2011. So we probably started Propel in 2009, 2010. We started ramping it up. But these were our final recommendations after we benchmarked ourselves among those school districts in the country that had a 95% higher graduation rate. I'm not going to read all of our recommendations from that team, but the one certainly that relates to what we're doing here was that we would try to have a standalone facility. All of those communities that we studied, while they did have very strong career and technical education programs, they all had a centralized facility to offer these high-wage, high-tech, high-demand kind of occupations. So that was from Propel. This was just recapping Workforce Forsyth. You all are familiar with that initiative that we do through our career and technical education, but 3 basic components: the academic piece, using the training and in-kind materials from our business community into the classroom, and that strengthened relationship with our post-secondary. Our work-based learning piece, where we offer externships, internships, and clinicals for our students. And then the employment pipeline piece is the piece that we've been focusing on probably the most the past couple of years in terms of what does our local workforce need, what are our employers saying that their hardest areas are to fill. That's just another way to look at what we've said is going to be our practical response to all career and technical education, of how we approach that and how it's all connected. This was something that Jennifer included in our press release, and a lot of the background from this, just to kind of show you how this would be organized. It would be a charter, a non-traditional fit under academies of creative education, and then you see where we have our traditional school within a school models, such as the STEM Academy at Forsyth Central or the Medical Services Academy at Lambert. You're all familiar with those particular programs. So our focus for this particular facility is going to be a 9-12 unit curriculum focused solely on workforce development. We're thinking around 1,000 students for the capacity, but basically the labs, the whole environment would be a simulated work environment for a student to enter. Certainly work-based learning would be a part of it, industry certification where students could go directly to work, or they could take that on and articulate that with a post-secondary institution. Dual enrollment's a big piece, and we probably need to update you guys at some point on all of the changes to dual enrollment in terms of the entry point, access points, tuition. Now it's funneled a little bit differently through the state. A lot of changes in legislation that happened, signed in May, so we really won't see the impacts of that probably until next school year fully. One thing that I'm not going to really pull up and show you the whole thing, but this whole concept of a makerspace lab, a lot of people don't know what that means. This is an example of that at Georgia Tech.
The Invention Studio is this magical place where they have basically every tool that you could possibly want to build something, and most of them are tools that no person could ever possibly afford. What we're doing here is actually completely new, not just at Georgia Tech, but everywhere.
We're all teaching ourselves and teaching each other and creating a sort of collaborative environment where knowledge flows really easily.
So they're going to show the whole thing, but that you can go in and watch that and kind of learn about that concept. We hope to tie that to a lot of our engineering and robotics programs and hopefully get a robotics field that we've been needing for a long time. Met with Automation Direct this morning about this concept, and they're very interested in helping us make that facility a possibility in terms of equipment and structures. The other component that you all are very familiar with, because we all took a field trip last year to the Discovery Center down at the World Congress Center. Gwinnett County is opening their own model of it. I also included a link to what that looks like, and I'll just show a little bit of that.
Each year, thousands of students graduate high school never knowing what professional or educational opportunities are available. Even worse, many lose focus and don't even graduate at all, never stopping to think what a financial strain this will have on their futures or lack thereof. The the Atlanta community decided to do something about this. Welcome to Junior Achievement's Chick-fil-A Foundation Discovers. In 7 months, this space at the Georgia World Congress Center was transformed from a few empty rooms to a simulated city of Atlanta to develop a place where our children can experience learning like never before.
So that's on there. It's hard to explain if you've not been to see that, so I encourage, if you do want to learn more about that, to watch that link. But basically, this is a concept for middle school students. It would serve really as a hub for Northeast Georgia because there's not availability for counties north of us and east of us to attend. So we're hoping, we met with the University of North Georgia yesterday as well as Junior Achievement about that concept and how that might fit into what we're trying to do. Down to, would it look like, the city of Cumming, parallel that to available businesses and storefronts that we have in our own community. So we're working on that concept. And then the end result of all of this certainly is workforce development, how we're serving the community. So part of this would go to serve training and development needs for business and industry in the local community, and just making this really a national model and a kind of a hub for what we're thinking. So this is a draft of our suggested, based on meeting with technical college partners, University of North Georgia partnerships, and looking just at where our job growth is in the community. These are some sample programs that we're looking at. Jennifer is helping us with a survey. She and Keith Porter are working on a parent survey, community survey, and a student survey to go out just to kind of validate where the interest level may be. We know where the growth is, but we want to make sure that our students are going to be interested in what we're offering, so that's going to be a piece that will tie into our application. What we've been working on for the last several weeks and months, obviously compiling all the workforce development research that we've done, conducting our own needs analysis, pulling data and statistics and growth in areas like that. We did complete the Work Ready Communities Academy. Randall and I did that last year. Certainly we've been meeting with high school principals involved in this conversation and others. Our career tech assistant principals at every school are obviously going to be a valuable part of this, and their influence and voice into the development of this. Meetings with Lanier Tech and UNG. We've met several times with state delegation, Lieutenant Governor's office. We've let them know of our opportunity, or that we are going to move forward with participation in the grant process. And then certainly the big news has been meetings with the City of Cumming, the Forsyth County Government, the Chamber, and the Public Facilities Authority in terms of location for the facility, how we were going to pay for the facility, and how are we going to gain the local commitment and support around with the Chamber's help in us doing that. So this is what we're working on now. The grant application and the draft charter are both going to come in about the same time. We're going to put that into our September 11th document that we're going to submit to the state. We're going to get the interest survey out. Letters of commitment we're working on now. I'm meeting individually with companies in the community now that are already invested in what we're doing at the school system. Darlene Alberson is working along with Hannah Orr and the Chamber on other memberships and getting letters of commitment out into the community for letters of support from, maybe smaller companies that we haven't identified. City of Cumming is going to meet on Tuesday night to validate their commitment publicly and have a letter of commitment and complete a checklist to how they would want to be involved. We met on Monday with the Public Facilities Authority. They made a motion at that meeting to move forward with exploring an intergovernmental agreement with our attorneys and their attorneys about the financing of the facility. They're going to meet again on August the 27th. And the Forsyth County Government on this Tuesday, on their work session, they passed a letter of commitment and the same level of involvement of where they would want to be involved. Other meetings that we have set up again, maybe the police department, the sheriff's department, where they would fit in, the local bar association with the law. So there's a lot of connections that we're making, trying to do that one-on-one. So that's about it. So all that will be available online. I put a lot of links to other documents that you may want to go look at, but we're rolling.
Thank you.
So exciting.
It really is, Valerie, what you've done. We just can't thank you enough, because this is a dream for so many of us that have lived here a long time, and what you've done is just phenomenal. To bring it to this point is just, it's exciting.
It is.
Totally exciting. Are there any other entities across America that will have the scope that we're doing?
No, there's not a national model that will be this tied to the post-secondary level as well as the business and industry. We talked yesterday about the Discovery Center model, and I think Junior Achievement is as excited as we are about this being a national model for them even, because the partnership and the level of commitment that the University of North Georgia, specifically the Mike Cottrell College of Business, is going to provide us in terms of student volunteers. And we met with their dean yesterday as well as Reuben Bowling, which many of you know. So we met with them on how the entrepreneurship side and their volunteer side will help really run the Discovery Center. So they're excited about that piece.
So the Discovery Center will be a wing, so to speak, of this facility.
We're not really sure. Tim and I kind of talked through some logistics today, and I know Dr. Bearden's met with them as well of what it's going to look like. Certainly we want this to replicate a work environment for students, so it may be that we go up and this goes on the top. We're not sure.
Right. That's exciting.
And I think it's timely in business too, because I know our company is moving to Atlantic Station. We moved our headquarters there. I got an update on that today, and looking at the Makerspace Lab, they're doing a lot of that. And that's the group of people they're looking at. So business is already starting to get there, and we need to prepare them for that. So it's going to be a different workplace, and we're recognizing that.
But by us doing it, this is going to increase. There'll be another alternative besides going downtown to the tech corridor. If we can do this, what we can attract is businesses. The tech industry could be here as well, and that's great.
Yeah, the Chamber's excited about this because obviously this is huge for their recruitment as well.
And they're working on, there's a couple of schools that we might could go see that just gives you kind of an idea that we could go see just so you can firsthand.
And one thing I will mention that I didn't earlier is of the list of programs that you saw, you know that those are not duplicated in any of our base high schools. And that's very important to us, that we don't undo any momentum that we've gotten because our programs are so very strong. These are typically programs that are, again, very expensive to replicate. And that would suit us financially. It would make more sense to do them in a central location. So that was one thing that, we talked through with principals and other administrators here. That was very important, that this be truly something different than a lot of the models that you may go out and look at across Georgia aren't that way. They have similar programs to what we have in our high schools already. So this is a lot different in terms of the programming there.
And it's always important to, when we speak of it, that we all include what's in the high schools already as a total big picture.
Correct.
Having that list of what we currently have broken down by school was very helpful. Because a lot of questions about this, and we say, look, we're already doing this within the schools. This will be separate. And people didn't realize how specific we had at each school. So you and Jennifer working on that list really helped explain what this is going to be about.
Valerie touched on this, but I don't think I've ever been involved in a project that has had such synergy. I'm really proud of our community because there's a lot of players involved here, a lot of players, and everyone is really rowing the boat in the same direction. And it's been so impressive to watch the business community and post-secondary all come together, the government come together to work on something that will serve not only our students but serve this community for many, many years to come. It has really been exciting to be part of the process.
It has. All the meetings I've been in, even if other agencies disagree about some things on this, everybody's been on the same page and is really behind it. All the governments and the agencies involved. So it's exciting. It really is.
Collaboration.
So if you need Carl and I for the next month, we'll be hunkered down.
Thank you.
Valerie had one other question. On the grant application to the Lieutenant Governor, that whole program is already funded, right?
It is.
It doesn't have to depend on it being voted in the next budget?
No, it was funded in the last session. It comes up every year during session, and in fact, they were trying to increase it to $5 million, but they didn't get that funding, but it still is the big bulk is there.
Okay, good.
So you're kind of doing a draft for the charter school. That in of itself is a project. So you're doing that simultaneously. So.
It's a huge project.
Who better than Carl to do that?
Okay, next we have meeting notification procedure. Kristin, I think you wanted to talk about that.
We just wanted to clarify, we had some questions. We had this past year, we've had a lot of extra meetings, called meetings, public hearings, that kind of thing. And I had questions from people and myself on where we put notifications, and is it the same across the board? I know we've advanced our technology. I have on my phone, I love the FCS calendar app, and it's handy to know. You could set it up by schools or the Board of Ed, and so I had questions on what things do we tweet versus which things do we put on our school homepage and the calendar. And then, for example, when we had our public hearings on the millage rate and things like that, people weren't sure where to go, because sometimes you put things in one place. So I just wanted to clarify where we're putting. It would be nice, in my opinion, if we're having a board meeting, whether it's a work session, a called meeting, a public meeting, or a public hearing, that all those meetings, if it's a quorum, come on that calendar, and also, for example, show up on the school calendar app, because people look like that. It is nice that our meetings are on e-board, but we're e-board people, but going to the homepage, finding the e-board, going through that process is not intuitive, or people just don't know what e-board is. So if it's on that calendar, I think would be really helpful, no matter what type of meeting the board is having. And then what things are tweeted versus, I guess what else do we do? Tweet, homepage, that kind of thing.
The school websites have them too, listed, don't they?
Yeah, they do. So, actually, that's a different topic, though. So that was my question, or just clarification. So I'm not sure what we can do to get it, I don't know if Jennifer's here, into the calendar app, the meetings, that would be helpful as well. Our 2 monthly meetings are, but the extra odd meetings that we have, especially with redistricting coming up, we'll be having more than normal.
So I'm on the homepage right now, so which calendar are you talking about?
Let me go bring it up here.
It says calendar, student calendars, assessment, and high school graduation dates is under calendars.
There we go. So, for example, when on the right-hand side, the upcoming events, that always has, like it has now, our work session and our board, our normal public meeting. When we had the public hearings, those meetings didn't pop up in that calendar. They were listed, if you understood, there was a bullet line under district news in that middle section that said notice of, I forget, it was tax increase or whatever it was, and then if you clicked on that, then you got the memo saying, here's what's happening, and there'll be a meeting on this day. So if someone came to our website and looked at the calendar, they wouldn't have seen that we were having those public meetings. So the bottom line is, if we have any board meeting, I'd like to see it in that upcoming events calendar. And then also, I think it would probably appear on the calendar app that we have for the school.
Okay, so we just need to.
It's like a one-stop shop. All board meetings, public work session, whatever, all can be seen in one place.
You just standardize the process for doing it.
So we just need to make a note that we want everything on the upcoming event. I mean, I've never had anybody ask me about a meeting or anything, so this is totally foreign to me.
I had
so I'm
quite a bit in July, particularly this year, because we had some odd extra meetings.
okay. So. All right, we will make a note of that and talk to Jennifer or whoever we need to talk to be sure that we get all the upcoming events on the upcoming event calendar.
Thank you.
Okay, and then next, the impact fee discussion, which has kind of been curtailed, but I think you want to give the information on that.
Sure. A little history for people to know. The county, when a new home or subdivision is built, the builders give the county impact fees, and they receive those fees for libraries, parks, and E911 emergency. There's been a long-standing discussion of why don't schools get impact fees, because they're building and the students come and we have to be ready for them. As it stands, according to the Constitution of Georgia, schools are not listed as an item that can receive impact fees, so it's against our Constitution technically. So it's always been a political hurdle, even though there's been some interest in having school impact fees. It's not an easy change to change something for the Constitution, even though we just want it, say, in Forsyth County, assuming people want it in the county. So long story short, that's always been a discussion point out there, and our state delegation has looked into it, and it couldn't easily politically happen. In the recent last couple of months, there was some outside-the-box thinking, and particularly Mike Dungeon, Commissioner Tam, some local people thought they found another way to do it. And we were kind of excited that we thought there was a potential to bring this up for discussion and try to get impact fees done. Then we found out just this week, on Tuesday, Representative Dungeon let us know that the lawyers at the Capitol found a Supreme Court case back to the 1990s that explicitly outlawed what would be necessary, which is an IGA between the Board of Education and the county to give that money to us. So in other words, the county collects the taxes, and then in theory, if there was impact fees for schools, they would pass that money on to us. But that would need an intergovernmental agreement. Well, this is not, that cannot be done. So that kind of took the wind out of our sails. One more time, we thought there was a chance to bring this up for discussion. So at this point, we had been talking about doing a resolution, as the county was talking about doing a resolution in support of the concept of impact fees. And I think a lot of people are still interested in that, but we have hit this hiccup once again that it would require an amendment to the Constitution, and it's just a big political hurdle at the Capitol level. So, does that kind of give everybody an overview?
Did I get most of that right, Mr. Harley? Any more questions about it or anything? I mean, anybody got any more discussion about it?
There are some school systems that, I don't know how to say it, they don't have impact fees, but they have created a summary of the cost of a new development to the system, be it the cost of that new student, the cost of future construction, and they work with developers, or they pass it on to the county, and the county says to the developers, well, here's what it's going to cost you. It's up to you if you want to think about giving us the money, and some actually do that, but that is not something that can be required or asked at this time.
Anybody got any more questions or discussion, comments? No? Okay. All righty, next, anybody have any future agenda items that they know of now? We're all good?
No.
Okay, we move on to executive session. Do I have a motion to go into executive session for personnel?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Tom and a second by Nancy. All in favor? Unanimous.